The recent arrest of America's newest confirmed serial killer is being kept unusually quiet. This should have been headline news. I mean, a 77-year-old guy being brought in on some amazing DNA work is great news, isn't it? So why is no one talking about it then? I suspect the true scope of Warren Alexander's 50-year-long killing spree is going to break records when it all finally gets revealed. Something big's brewing here, and I have a feeling that we aren't ready for the horrific history that this retired truck driver has behind him. Let's get into it. The murder of 29-year-old Nona K. Stamey Cobb back in 1992 is the whole reason that this previously unknown serial killer came to light. So let's start with her case and work our way through the investigators' discoveries as this unraveled over the years. I know you've come to expect me to take things from the very top and work through the case chronologically, but this time we're going to do things a little differently. I do this because it's important for us all to see how even the oldest, most obscure cases will always have hope, as long as there's someone out there still digging. And digging's what allowed us to put a monster behind bars once and for all. Nona was a troubled woman. She'd been involved in sex work to sustain her drug habit for quite some time and even lost custody of her 3-year-old son just months before she was killed. But no matter how bad things got, she never missed a day to call him to check up on how he was doing. Little Jason was living with Nona's sister, and he'd wait at the phone for Mommy to call every afternoon. When Nona stopped calling, her sister waited a few days to report it. By the third day that Nona missed calling her son, she was sure that something was terribly wrong. Police were able to match Nona to a body that was found along the interstate northwest of Winston-Salem in North Carolina. She'd been assaulted, strangled with her own underwear, and from the looks of it, been disposed of in a hurry. From the get-go, police suspected that Nona was murdered by a truck driver. This interstate seen its fair share of killings, as have most of the big highways in the U.S. And as you might know, the FBI has been keeping tabs on highway killings for decades now, specifically because serial killers gravitate to the profession of trucking because it allows for optimal movement, access to vulnerable women, and the ability to avoid detection, given the enormous area that they can operate in. Actually, the relationship between highways and serial killers and truck drivers is a whole video on its own, so drop me a comment if you want me to cover that can of worms. It's a fascinating subject. Nona's body did deliver a very good DNA sample, and police even had a pretty solid suspect lined up. Sean Patrick Goebel had been arrested for murdering 3 sex workers, was known to operate on that interstate, and his MO was the same: approach a woman, take her in his truck, strangle her and dump her on the side of the road as he drove out of the area. He didn't hide the bodies or make any effort to clean up their remains, and they were all disposed of in a hurry. Only, Goebel denied any involvement with Nona, but 2 serial killers with the same MO and who operated in the same stretch of road, I mean, what are the chances of that happening? Well, we true crime nuts know full well that those highways have a horrific amount of killers operating on them. This kind of crossover between killers has happened multiple times before. And sure enough, Goebel's DNA did not match the sample found on Nona. That's where the case sat for a few more decades. It wasn't until 2021 that her file was dug out again by the Cold Case Department. After the DNA hit a wall on CODIS, they ran it through a genealogist, Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick. She traced the DNA to a family tree, and from there, she ended up on a 73-year-old retired truck driver named Warren Luther Alexander. This was a puzzling result. Sure, he had the right profession and even fit the general age of what Nona's killer would be now. But Warren had no previous record, no violent history, and he'd never been on anyone's radar before at all. But the DNA doesn't lie. So off they went and hauled him in. Before the questioning even began, a technician who was smart enough to run the DNA against other cold cases came forward with a bombshell revelation. Warren's DNA pinged on 3 other unsolved cases, a trio of women that police thought were all victims of the same man, only these women were killed way back in the 70s.
On Tuesday of this week, 73-year-old Warren Luther Alexander was extradited from North Carolina to Ventura County to stand trial for the murders of all 3 women.
The victims were 18-year-old Kimberly Fritz, 31-year-old Velvet Sanchez, and 21-year-old Lorraine Rodriguez. All of them were sex workers, strangled with a cord or belt that left the same ligature marks on their necks, and all of them were killed in or near Oxnard, California. They were murdered in 1977 and were found close enough after their deaths that the semen sample could be extracted from their remains. Kimberly and Velvet were found inside motel rooms that were paid for with cash, and Lorraine was found displayed on a bridge. All of the women were known to frequent the Plaza Shopping Center in Oxnard to pick up clients, which also happens to be close to a popular truck stop. Not to mention that they were seen getting into a truck with a man fitting Warren's description, and all of their bodies were positioned in the exact same way. Police have not released what exactly they meant by the positioning of the bodies, but they implied that there was a ritualistic aspect to how they were displayed. Back then, these details would have been sensitive information that I'd expect them to keep quiet. I'm sure that when Warren gets to court, we'll have more clarity on this rather vague description. Moving on. Investigators had these three women pegged as the victims of a single serial killer, probably one of the truck drivers passing through. Unfortunately, whoever this was stopped killing women in that area as soon as they put the similarities together, and their cases just lay gathering dust until Warren came up for Nona's murder. So who was this Warren Alexander then? This elderly man that came out of left field? From what little information is out there, we know that he was born on January the 12th, 1951 in Diamond Head, Mississippi. He did a stint in the military and might have seen combat during the Vietnam War. His official position there was an electrician, but he didn't take those qualifications anywhere when he returned to his hometown. Instead, he was a long-distance truck driver for the next 30 years. He was still living in Diamond Head when he was arrested. There is no record of any wives, children, or any of his close relatives. But then again, everything's been done very hush-hush as Warren's team prepares for trial. It's possible that his next of kin's identities are being protected for their own safety. Or maybe he just didn't have any. Trucking is known to attract those who prefer their own company, so I wouldn't put it past him being a loner with no relationships. It's another one of those details we'll just have to wait for until the trial is completed. His first appearance in court was in August of 2024, and the arraignment appearance was a month later. They haven't even confirmed if he pled guilty or not. But given the extreme secrecy about everything so far and the back-to-back court appearances, I'm guessing he pled innocent and that the two separate sides are preparing for a full-blown trial, jury and all. Most likely, Warren's team is buying as much time as they can. I mean, he's old already, and if his health isn't great, it's very possible that he could die a natural death before any of this goes to trial and he gets to be buried without a criminal conviction. If that happens, he can be laid to rest on his own terms, with his full military service still intact and no official guilt on his record. Right now, he's incarcerated in North Carolina awaiting trial for murders of Nona Stamey Cobb and for 3 first-degree murder charges against Kimberly Fritz, Velvet Sanchez, and Lorraine Rodriguez. Now, I'm not going to have too much of an opinion until we get more details of any additional evidence, what kind of background and history he has, and all of the other details we usually have to go on. There's still a lot here that's still very much up in the air. The DNA means that he most likely killed these 4 women, but that's not what concerns me. There's a much scarier reality here that should give us pause. It's almost certain that he's killed many more other than these 4. The victims in 77 were killed in California, but Nona was murdered 2,000 miles away in North Carolina. Warren traveled extensively for work. I mean coast to coast and north to south, hundreds of times between 77 and 92. And those 15 years of known activity is just the very least estimate of his time as an active serial killer. But because I'm nosy, let's do some more math, shall we? In 77, he'd have been 26 years old, right in the age range that most serial killers start operating. Let's say he retired at the age of 60, at the very least. That still means he was on the road until 2011. That's 34 whole years that Warren went completely unchecked and totally free to do as he pleased. I'm highly doubtful that these 4 are the only cases out there. Just look at the killings in 77. Kimberly was killed in May, Velvet in September, and Lorraine in December. That's a 3 to 4 month cooling period between murders, and now the math gets even scarier. Let's say, at the absolute least estimated amount, he killed 4 women on average a year. 4 multiplied by 34 years we suspect him of being active equates to 136 victims. 136! Let that sink in for a second. Even if we slash that in half, that's still 68 possible victims, and that's without taking into account that he strangles his victims. So those who underwent a longer decomposition period wouldn't have shown obvious signs of death for us to pinpoint potential victims. This widens the victim pool even more. Just California alone has 41 unsolved female murders between the ages of 16 and 40 within his known operation period. Look, I can keep throwing out more math and more statistics until we all turn blue, but there's no denying that he'd certainly not have gone cold turkey between 77 and 92. No way in hell does a violent killer like this just go on a 15-year hiatus because he wanted a holiday. I think I've made my case clear that this guy could potentially be one of the USA's most prolific serial killers, and we know nearly nothing about him, his working routes, and we haven't even begun to connect him to potential victims yet. I have no doubt that this is far from over, and I'll be here watching the trial as it progresses. Which brings me to my final point. This case will undoubtedly have updates in the near future, and I've already got some of our previous cases drawn up that have new arrests and some new information that's been released since they were featured here on Evidence Obscured. So, my question is, would you appreciate the occasional update on our previous coverages? Let me know in the comments below. Our team reads every comment, and we take all of your requests, criticisms, and suggestions to heart. And like always, don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe. It's your engagement that keeps the lights on here in the office. See you in the next one, people. Cheers.